Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread, the podcast, bringing our content to you. I'm All It Is, and today I'm here with my fellas, Beware, Cap, Doc, and Savage, and we're excited to get into episode 6, Arrival, verse The Truman Show. Now, if you tuned in last week, you know a couple of Thread members tried to use their mulligan to replace Arrival, and I'd have to say, fortunately, Arrival was not replaced because it's a fantastic movie, folks. Surely one of the greats. Savage and I actually got to watch it last night up north at my cottage in Michigan, and we really both enjoyed it. But before we get into the matchup, a special shout out to tonight's sponsor, Truly. Truly Seltzer is a refreshing alternative to beer and wine, and they're perfect for all your summertime festivities. But don't be like my aunt last year on the 4th of July, swearing that they don't have alcohol in it and then regretting it the next day, because they do, folks. So please drink responsibly. We're almost ready to get into the discussion, but not before we play that intro music produced by our Thread member, Beware. Go.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Well, it's very, homey.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here.
I hope you realize how you hurt my feelings.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. Next place.
Just take it easy, man.
I'm perfectly confident.
Yeah, waving the fucking gun around?
Calmer than you are.
Look, I made a mistake, all right? It didn't make any difference anyway.
Hey, I'm letting it go. But don't say it doesn't matter. Every line matters.
Get off my back!
Don't fuck with my plan!
And like that, he's gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread podcast, bringing our content to you, featuring All It Is.
It's official, old buddy. Well, has been.
Beware.
From then on, he was known as Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The Doc.
You're the doc, Doc.
The Pep.
If you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Big fuck!
And myself, Savage.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's two of them.
Homework's in. Let's begin, folks. Shout out to Truman Show, making it into the intro music produced by Beware. You got to love that. That's a classic quote. I'm here with my fellas. We're all feeling pretty good. I think we've all done our homework, and I think there's a lot of people that were very surprised by both of these movies, and that would be a perfect time for us to get into just that. And we're going to pass it to Beware first because he just saw Arrival for the first time, folks. Beware, talk about it.
Both movies are indeed excellent. Both movies are about people who kind of at the beginning of the movie, each respective movie, looking at the world one way, and by the end of the movie they're looking at the world completely different, their future completely different. And both of them are very emotional and extremely well written movies, quite different in their tone. Arrival is a very strong movie, and Truman Show has a little bit more I don't know, comic nature, I suppose. You know, Truman Show, for anybody that hasn't seen, you know, Truman Show is about a character, a person, a man who is living with his wife, and he finds out basically that he is, you know, spoiler alert, he finds out that he's the lead character in a living, breathing reality TV show, and unbeknownst to him, he's the last one in on it, and he finds out the movie's about him finding out, whereas Arrival is about a linguist teacher and her counterpart who meet and greet aliens that touch down on Earth. And again, both are heavy movies in their own right. Both are very excellent, and I'll get into the rest of the details as we move along. I'll pass the rock to Doc.
Yeah, man, thanks for that synopsis. That was good. It's always fun to hear from somebody who has either just recently seen it, and in your case, sounds like you just had seen it for the first time, and so I'm eager to hear more about your thoughts on it. But these are two movies that I guess we would categorize as science fiction movies. Obviously, I think Arrival is a science fiction movie, but I think Truman Show falls into that category too. And I like how you put it, Beware, that these are characters that start out, perceiving the world in one way, and then by the end of the movie, the kind of their arc or their curve is that they have a very different perspective on things. And I think that it gets these characters question what is truth, and in particular with the Truman Show, he's questioning his reality, like what he actually sees day to day and the people in his life. And then in the Arrival, there's a question of time. What is time, and how does that work, and how is this just a something that we've created? And they're like, as you said it perfectly again, they're coming to a realization by the end of this movie, and then what to do then with that realization. What are the next steps? And then both ask real interesting philosophical or kind of existential questions of looking at like free will in Truman Show, and like, is there such thing as free will, or are things, can you contrive things, and can you direct somebody? And I think there was a quote that by Christoph, I think he said, and you can maybe insert it here, but essentially it's like,
it's all true. It's all real. Nothing here is fake. Nothing you see on this show is fake. It's merely controlled.
Anyways, that's the quote that Christoph gives. And also the ethical kind of moral dilemma of like to continue with this and to continue organizing it that way. And then also I think really interesting question with Arrival is, if you could see the future, would you make the decisions that would lead to both kind of pleasure and pain? And I think that's such an interesting question, which we all kind of knowingly do to some extent. We all are human beings. We all know that we're going to die eventually, and we know that we're going to have kids, and we know that we're going to marry somebody, and we're making these decisions because these are things that are going to help increase the quality of our life, and but at the same time, like, we know that there's probably going to be tragedy involved in that. And like, if you knew exactly what that tragedy was, would you still make those same decisions? And I think that's such an incredible question to ask. And then also real quick, last couple things is that I think these movies also kind of speak to some negatives of human nature. And specifically with Truman Show, kind of this like desire to control or mastermind, to try to create a perfect world for somebody, but how ethical or unethical is that? And then also with Arrival, this failure to communicate, or this miscommunication, misunderstanding, and how that leads to fear and division, and the kind of this side plot in Arrival that I thought was really interesting. So anyways, I'll kind of throw those topics out there, and I'll pass it over to looks like maybe Cap wants to chat next.
The Cap's here.
Sure, yeah. I guess when I think about these movies in comparison with each other, I think about how these movies are both essentially, maybe not so much Truman Show, because Truman is the character, but they're plot-driven movies. Being that the Truman Show is such an original idea, they've built this gigantic dome for him to live his life, and everybody is in on it. And he slowly discovers that, his life is not really essentially real. With Arrival, you have aliens landing on Earth, and I guess the two major differences that I saw in this movie is that in Truman Show, you have the fact that the audience, the viewer, is in on the idea that he is in a television show. And the difference with Arrival is that we are sort of on this journey with Dr. Louise, as she is discovering her own gift. And I think that's the big a plot twist in the movie, is when we find out that this vision of her her daughter, that she continues to have, or this person that she doesn't really know who it is her daughter. And she's realizing that slowly. After I watched Arrival, I kind of had a thought that Truman Show may or may not have been more interesting if the audience was sort of more experiencing it from the eyes of Truman, like if it was sort of being exposed to the viewer as you were watching it. But that would be a totally different movie.
Cat. One quick to the point to that note is that at a certain point in the Truman Show, it kind of does become that. I was thinking about that when I was watching it. You know, I've watched that movie 50 times. And this time when I was watching it, I realized once at the end, once he hits the boat scene, everybody the whole time has been in on it the whole time. You know what's going to happen. You know what's next because it's so routine. When you hit the boat and he hits the water and then the camera clicks and they find him, everybody for the first time is all on the same page, to your point. It's like you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's next. You are Truman. The audience is Truman for the very first time. And I thought that was pretty cool in that realization, because it does kind of flip its head. The whole point of view flips its head. And you're right.
Yeah.
The whole movie like that. You couldn't have done a whole movie like that.
That's a great point. They flipped the script. Yeah,
you're right about that. That's something that didn't quite occur to me, but yeah, it does switch the tone. The whole tone of the movie switches when he goes off the map, and they have to, shut the show down until they find him.
Shut it down.
So another thing I'd like to point out is when Adam talked about negativity and human nature, and he mentioned some points about the Truman Show. When I was watching Arrival, it kind of reminded me, when they're showing scenes of like all the looting and the chaos, and I just kind of thought, like, is all the toilet paper gone too? Or and then I thought that they did a really, really great job of showing the military sort of typical aggressive response to anything that might pose a threat, and wanting to go on make decisions on very little information. It just seemed pretty true to life. And the scene that really got me too is that when they come down and pick her up in the middle of the night with the chopper. I thought was pretty, I don't know. It just seemed like, hey, we need you now, and we're gonna get you to do what we want. So, the character of Forrest Whitaker, just seemed very sort of like, get the facts, get them quick, get them now, and do your job so we can do ours. We're going to use you to get what we need, and then we're going to make our decisions based off that. So, I guess that's all I have to say. I'll pass it to the old Sav.
Thanks, Cap.
Truman Show. That's a great movie. I hadn't seen it for a very long time, and I was thinking about back when that movie came out in 1998, some of the marketing for it. It seemed like it was going to be the biggest movie of all time. I just felt like after the 1994 that Jim Carrey had with Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, and then subsequent years, I think he had The Cable Guy, Liar Liar. There's a few other movies in there. And then this was like that pivot that we love in our thread so much, when the ferocious comedian actor pivots to the drama. And when Robin Williams turns into the Robin Williams we see in Good Will Hunting, or how we see Bill Murray in Royal Tenenbaums kind of take this back role of a more serious character. That's something that we love here on our thread. I remember thinking this movie was going to be the biggest movie ever, because it was, I'm a 14-year-old boy, and the prime demographic for Jim Carrey movies, thinking this is going to be the biggest thing ever. And I remember seeing it in the theater and being a little bit underwhelmed, just because I wanted to be more Jim Carrey as a 14-year-old. I didn't have that developed brain to be like, oh, this is great. But watching it again in my 30s, it seems like it's been a lot more, I got a lot more out of it. Although I want to say one thing about it before I pass it over to Doc. I really think that the Truman Show nowadays would be best served as a Black Mirror episode or a Black Mirror
darker.
movie.
I hear that.
More dark. And
No
and
doubt.
I think that Jim Carrey has the chops to do a darker version of what we saw in the Truman Show. I'm gonna go over to the doc.
Love that,
So,
Sav.
so I've got a couple points real quick that are some facts that go off of what you just said, Sav. So, and all it is. So the darkness actually, this actually script was written to be a dark film. It was originally set in like in New York City, Manhattan, but like a dark crime ridden. And it was and actually Truman was like an alcoholic. And some of the scenes with his wife were a lot more aggressive. And so like there was a lot of darkness to it that they kind of softened through reiterations of the script. And so I think I like that take that it would have been this could have been maybe put into a Black Mirror episode, or one or two. I definitely think that that's a good call. And then another point that I wanted to make, I actually don't remember that, Sav, like what you mentioning about like in 90, 97, 98, this being billed as like a big movie. And maybe it was just like because this was Jim Carrey and this was him coming off of those big movies that, these were like primetime our age. And for us too, like this was our humor, our brand of humor. And he was a star and the biggest, and to be in this new movie. But little did we know it was him taking on a more of a dramatic role. And in fact, he took usually was getting paid $20 million per movie. That was kind of his for these comedy roles he was taking on. But because he took on a dramatic role, he actually willingly took a huge pay cut because he's even admitted, like, I'm not a dramatic actor, so I don't deserve the same. So instead of making $20 million a movie, he took a pay cut to take on $12 million, which I thought was interesting. And then my last point before I pass it is that All It Is asked me to do this research. I think it was yesterday or the day before. But basically, what were the budgets of these movies, and how much?
Thanks, Doc.
Yeah, man. How much did Truman Show spend on effects and actors and all that and similar? And then how much did Arrival spend? And the results are surprising. So Arrival, which came out in 2016, had a budget of $47 million, which is not
huge.
No, and if you look at movies that came out in 2016, you're looking at Avengers films, which are easily 3 times as that. It's like, so that this kind of probably falls, middle of the pack. Truman Show, which came out in 1998, so we're looking at 20 years earlier, approximately. Again, Arrival was $47 million. Truman Show was $60 million budget, which is really surprising to me because even if you look at some of so you don't have a whole bunch of name brand actors, it was really surprising to me to see that number. And I saw Savage kind of shaking his head, so maybe he has something to say about this to help, maybe even help explain this or elaborate this, but this really confused me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Truman Show spent a lot of money on sets and design, and probably on an actress, payroll. I would think that Jim Carrey probably made more than Amy Adams in Arrival, but I couldn't be certain of that, but they could be.
100%.
The other thing I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit real quick was the fact that originally, or I don't know if it was originally, but at some point, the director Terry Gilliam was actually thought to be the director for this movie. So that's Terry Gilliam of like Time Bandits, Brazil, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Weird movie director, dark, not uplifting in any way, somewhat confusing. 12 Monkeys, that kind of director. I think if he would have taken this over, it would have been a completely different movie, and it probably, I don't want to say it would have been a better movie. It definitely would have been an easier to digest movie, but it would have been maybe a little revered a little bit differently than it was. I guess I'll just say it that way.
So
I'd like to. Oh, sorry.
Real quick, Cap, and I'll pass to you. But like, since you mentioned director, I think we might talk. I think it's important to talk about these directors because they're not household name directors, but they are directors that either had or have a good resume or are building a good resume. And so I think that might be something interesting to talk about. So just to put it out there, the director of Truman Show was Peter Weir, who Dead Poets Society, Gallipoli, The Way Back, Fearless. And then the director of Arrival is Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve. Do not pronounce the S to Denis. It is silent in French. Do not say Denis, but rather Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve.
Who is did Blade Runner, the new Redux 2049, and is also currently directing Dune. So kind of more of a newer sci-fi director, but not these big names that we're used to dealing with. Sorry, Kat.
Hey, oh, yeah. So I'd just like to point out one thing, because you guys are talking about the Truman Show and how it was, originally thought to be maybe a darker movie set in like a New York City type place. I just thought it was funny that this may or may not, maybe Doc could check on that, this might be the only movie that got a PG rating.
Yeah, that surprised me. I watched it with my daughter, and it was fine.
Yeah, I think Beware has something to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about Truman Show that movie came out, and I think somebody said 1998, 1999, something like that.
98. Yep.
The first reality TV show that I can remember was The Osbournes, and that came out in 2003.
What about Real World? Come on.
Oh, Real World. Okay, Real World. But that wasn't them in their real life. That wasn't them in their normal scenario. That was them in a faux house that was like a fake scenario that they were thrown into.
The word normal is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, though, because it is still like it is still not scripted, but it might be debatable.
Yeah, well, that's reality TV.
Yeah, but that it's the Osbournes. It was, and like half the reality shows these days and forever are people in their real lives and real settings. And when that movie was made, there was nothing like that. We had never seen anything like that, really. And I just think that is a very one of a kind story in general. And that's honestly what really makes Truman Show kind of ahead of its time, really stand out, strongly in hindsight, regardless of what we felt it was going to be going into the movie.
Beware.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Beware. When I was actually looking into some stuff, like there are actually critics out there that say like that Truman Show actually predicted the popularity of reality TV, and like the whole voyeurism kind of look in, and like that helped to set the stage for a lot of what we saw in the early 2000s and now still of reality TV.
Hey, Cap, I think you had one thing you wanted to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the obvious reason why the Truman Show cost so much to make is because they actually had to build that giant dome above the Hollywood sign that you could see from space.
Cap.
So is this
Doc, can you confirm that?
Oh yeah, so this took place in Burbank, California. The dome is still there today. You can go to
Your sister lives there.
Yes.
I think the Cap just cried wolf, didn't he?
Yeah.
Dang, he hasn't done that in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
Cap cries wolf.
So, but really though, some facts real quick is that the movie was filmed in Seaside, Florida, which is kind of a town that was designed, and so it was very structured, laid out, and had that kind of
tacky suburban.
Yes, that like 40s, 50s, 60s kind of suburban, perfect kind of utopian feel.
It looks like the Villages.
Yeah.
Lots of good points from our thread members. And I just got to say, folks, to let you know out there, our viewers of the thread, thanks for tuning in, that I'm undecided. And it's my thread members right now that are actually fueling me and giving me the courage to make my decision when it comes to vote time. Not yet, folks, because I still got to talk about my little synopsis. And like Beware had said, I've seen the Truman Show a good amount of times. I was that 90s generation that loved Jim Carrey and everything he did. And I actually think I liked him a little more tame. I liked it. I was intrigued by him. I always knew that Jim Carrey is a good actor. kind of like Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love. He kind of turned a coin there. I think Jim Carrey showed potential for that way earlier. He's a fantastic actor. And I'm just going to say right off the rip, my favorite character out of the both movies. How can you not pick somebody that has the whole show based on him? And it's so Jen, and it's great. Hey, the only kid ever adopted by a corporation, as far as I know, folks, we haven't had that happen yet. Dear God. But like we've mentioned a few times, Black Mirror, this how we're getting closer. Beware and I are big fans of the Twilight Zone, and we kind of feel like we're living in a Twilight Zone Black Mirror episode. And all it is, I consider myself woke, and I think Truman is actually about Truman becoming woke, if you will, folks out there. And when you do your research and you really get behind the curtains, folks, and go into realms unknown, if you will, you do start to see that stuff potentially is controlled, that more people are really trying to do just that in commercials, television, tell a lie. This is a programming, and I don't want to get too woke on you folks, but this is what that movie does to me. It was so innocent and genuine that you almost wanted to watch the Truman Show, like the Osbournes, okay, if you will. Like we were prepped, we're ready. Reality TV swept the TV market, if you will. That's basically what I got to say about Truman Show. Also saying that Jim Carrey is my favorite too, but Arrival, obviously, me being into aliens and the conspiracy research, like I've just said, Arrival, I had spent just enough time, only seeing it twice in my life, just enough time, that time where it passes a few years where you're like, I don't quite remember everything that's happening, but I know what is going on and what's going to happen. But Arrival was so, watching these films under the lens we are now, that greatness lens, it felt truly great. I love the soundtrack. I love the score of that movie. I love how simple it is. And the reason I asked Doc to do that research, folks, is because I had a feeling that it wasn't that much money. It's very simple. The crafts, special effects, very simple. Nothing like an Avengers or anything where it goes crazy. Flat black little Alexis echoes, if you will, floating in the sky. And you have people in hazmat suits and stuff like that, but there's not much special effects. And even like when she kind of floats up to the ship, it's nothing we haven't seen. And I think that it was so proper how neat they were with that. They didn't blow us out of the water with special effects or Star Wars us. And I really, really like that it made for it being so intense. And one of the things I noticed is you don't see the crafts until probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes into the movie. And that right there, folks, builds so much suspense, and I really love it. Like I said, I'm undecided on what I'm going to go with, and we have some more stuff to get into. So now I'm going to transition to the rest of our thread, and we're going to talk about characters, quotes, and like kind of what really, really stood out. We can almost throw scenes in there too, just who's eager to, we got Savage up with a hand up. Let's go to Savage and see what he's got to say. Savage.
Yeah, you mentioned, just real quick, you mentioned the fact that you like the score a lot. Johan Johannesson, he's like kind of a pretty well-known he was a pretty well-known Icelandic composer and producer. He did die a couple years ago at the age of 48. But he did a lot of scores, and he made a few quite a few albums too, like kind of on the electronic kind of front, but very ambient, kind of melodic, but a phenomenal like producer, and the sounds in that movie are pretty stellar. The kind of exactly. There's a lot of those
dubstep.
Oh yeah, there's some deep stuff going on there. So anyway, I'm going to kind of pivot over to the best, and I'm going to follow suit with what you were saying about your favorite character. I think that Truman Burbank is the best character out of both movies. There's not really any character in Arrival that you are in love with. They all do a fine job, but it's not Jim Carrey being that like lovable.
The subtleness is important for the film. Nobody can stand out, or at least the aliens can, if anything.
Right, yeah. If anyone's going to stand out.
Shout out to the aliens. I couldn't find them on IMDb. I don't know. I'd have to check with Doc.
Yeah, Abbott and Costello, the heptapods are pretty phenomenal job in this. But Jim Carrey really captures that like lovable sad sack. And it's kind of like the first time you see him like that. So that's why he's my favorite character in both these movies. Also, I don't think you have a movie like Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind without having
on the list, folks.
Coffee first, which will be on a subsequent podcast that we will be covering, where that goes against. I'll have to check my notes and figure out who that goes.
Who knows? I could pull it out of the hat tonight, folks.
Yeah, we never know. We could have a Jim Carrey back to back. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Jim Carrey portraying Truman Burbank as. I mean, that's the character. That's the one.
Why don't we pass it to Cap? He looks like he's in front of the window and the whole world is watching him, and he's just about to put on a show for us. Cap.
Yeah, I think it's undoubtedly Truman Burbank is the strongest character from both movies. I can't disagree with that. They set up an entire world for him, and the whole world is watching. So, while I've got the mic, I'd just like to point out something that made me just crack up watching this movie by myself yesterday. Is when he is very at the beginning is starting to like question his own reality, and he's sort of it's the scene leading up to where he stops traffic in both directions, which I thought was great. But something that killed me is when I think it's right after he sees what's behind the elevator, and he sort of gets pushed out by the security guards.
Yes.
And he just runs up to this guy that's on a ladder working on the building and slaps him on the butt with his briefcase. Oh my God.
Briefcase. That I have that wrote down.
Such a small little detail, but it's like, I wonder if that was, it's probably not improvised, but it's such a great little detail. And there's such a funny little moment that really, really made me laugh out loud.
I love that, Cap. Just really quick, I want to pass it to Beware, and I'm kind of going to say one of my favorite scenes from that movie is when Jim Carrey is going around in the circle. And
I changed my mind.
How's New Orleans this type of this year? Mardi Gras. That's full on Jim Carrey. That's the only Ace Ventura Jim Carrey you're going to get in the movie. And it makes it so much better. And he just spazzes for a second and does what he does best. But that's not his character. That's not Truman. That's a brief moment of insanity. And of course, Jim Carrey does that so well. Beware.
Yeah, my character is definitely Jim Carrey.
I like that.
Truman Show. He's the best Jim character in the movies. However, I did just want to specifically shout out that Laura Linney, who is more popular than ever these days because she's basically the lead character in Ozark, which is one of the most popular shows on Netflix. And excellent, highly recommend. Took me a minute. It's got some lulls, but it's good.
Season 3.
Yeah, she's really good in it, but like you can see why she's really good in it because she's always really good. She's always been a really good actress, and she's excellent in the Truman Show. She really nails it, and she's got a really unique performance and a tough performance in that she's basically got to play, somebody within, a confined space. They're an actor acting, and it's just not an easy role, and it changes quite a bit. Truman has to change a lot throughout the role, or Jim Carrey does as the character. He's one thing for half the movie, and then he unravels and he becomes a different thing by the end of the movie. Laura Linney's character is kind of like teasing the character that she becomes when it breaks. When she pulls the knife and breaks and starts to cry and says, "Somebody help me" or whatever.
Yeah. What about the irony when she says, "This is so unprofessional"? Oh yeah? You really? This is so unprofessional, but I love that. She's so dramatically great. I love her.
Yeah, she was really good in that movie, and I enjoyed that. And and it's funny. You watch Ozark, and you're like, man, I know she's in something that I like. I can't put a finger on it, And then you watch Truman Show, it's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Maybe she takes Best Supporting Actor then.
Definitely.
Why wouldn't she? Absolutely. I think that's what Beware's saying.
I agree with that. I like both of them better than either character in Arrival, and that's not to take away any of the performances Arrival.
That's fine. I agree. Doc, Tom, talk about it.
Yeah, man. I definitely. So before I agree with everybody that Jim Carrey or Truman is the best character, I want to give some shine to some folks over in Arrival. When I say folks, I'm talking about the two heptapods.
No, the doc found it.
Abbott and Costello. And what I love about this, I was interested. I was like, why Abbott and Costello? There's got to be a meaning there. And for those of you that I'm sure folks within my discussion panel, folks are familiar with the who's on first, who's on second kind of bit made famous by Abbott and Costello, and started looking into that, reading into that. And that was definitely purposeful because that's, that whole bit is about language and communicating and the confusion from communication. And and kind of misunderstanding while communicating, and so that served a purpose. Interestingly, which this is another little thing that I found out, is that in Italy, for example, when they were showing Arrival, Abbott and Costello were not familiar names that the Italians knew about, so that they instead of using Abbott and Costello, they used Tom and Jerry, which I thought was kind of hilarious. But I don't know if that fits the same thing, but it's kind of this
awesome. That's great.
Similar kind of. But I mean, but those characters, the Abbott and Costello characters are great, and I think that it's cool to kind of see that. And
is anybody else uncomfortable saying aliens? Was that one of the quotes? Or what is it?
What it is.
Is anybody else having a hard time saying aliens? That's so good, man.
But if I can bring it back, though, I do agree with you guys with the Truman Show, and with Truman Burbank as the best character. And did you guys pick up on the fact that like Truman or True Man or True Human? As far as like what the show is.
Doc, let's play tennis. What about Christoph? Tell me about that after that.
Christ of, or off. Like they even looked at it as off Christ or Antichrist, and trying to control or pull the puppet strings. And
I'm glad we got to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's deep.
And so there's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie that are related to kind of like religion or literary or historical, which maybe I'll try to touch on a little bit, but definitely some religious undertones in this movie and type in that.
Love him, protect him, always. Love him, protect him.
Exactly. Another interesting thing about Truman Burbank, and the reason his last name's Burbank is because the show is filmed in Burbank, California, which is funny. But what the director and writer said that this was kind of inspired by Michael Jackson's life, like how his whole life was tuned into seeing him from a young kid and
growing up in front of the world,
in front of everybody, and like everybody tuned in. He would to watch what he did next and that sort of thing, and kind of that helped to spin the idea of, well, what if like that was started from square one and that was actually the whole purpose. So that's interesting. And then somebody brought this up earlier. I can't remember who it was, but like, I love seeing Jim Carrey, and like, as we were maybe as in 8th grade or 9th grade when we went and saw this movie in 1998, we were expecting to see, Ace Ventura or Dumb and Dumber, but we didn't see that kind of unrestrained Jim Carrey character. But now as older, I appreciate his dramatic chops.
Don't worry about the chop. You don't know shit about chop.
Oh, really? And you do?
He's gotten better over the years. But you do then maybe more appreciate how when he was in the mirror, just being himself, you got to see the Jim Carrey, the kind of spontaneity. You got to see him ad-lib some things, but you got to see Jim Carrey coming out as a character, or as what is brought up, as he was spazzing. And like that's when you saw the Jim Carrey aspect come out. Truman carries the movie, best character.
Jim character.
Best
he was a Jim character.
The fact that multiple discussants said that, I think, is telling. And so I'm going to pass it. I think we can start talking about some best scenes now that we've kind of set the groundwork with best characters.
Absolutely. And there's going to be a lot to talk about. And, when we do say best, you have to talk about a couple sometimes. And like I said, from the Truman Show, I did mention one that just cracks me up. And it's good in that movie to just crack up out of nowhere. And Beware kind of touched on the one where Meryl breaks down. That is really good. And Arrival is so fluent and cohesive that it's hard to pick one scene or whatever, just because it's really a ride. So you almost have to go with the Truman Show. And there's so much good stuff in there. But Cap already talked about it. And this is another funny scene. The whole thing where he is stopping the cars, waking up, and then it's finished off with him hitting a guy with his briefcase is so good. And then you want him to win so bad, and you know he's going to. The last, like, kind of, if that's my favorite, because I couldn't pick this one as a favorite, but it's so great, is at the end when they're the security guards who are one of our viewers that we see. You know, we see the old lady, we see the security guards, we see the Asians, a bunch of different people. But he goes, "You want another slice? I'm all right. Want to change the channel, see what else is on?" Like, wow, dude. Okay, now that I say that, I actually vocalize that. That's the best scene, because that sums up the whole movie in a snap. And that's us. That's us, the viewers, man. We are Trumanized, if you will, folks. We might as well live in Trumania, because we love our TV, and we love our reality, and we love our Michael Jacksons and stuff like that. And folks, can I say, maybe for the wrong reason, folks, maybe it's too much programming out there we're watching. Yikes. Beware.
Yeah, I do think it's too much programming, first of all. Second of all, that scene that you mentioned, it's a great point that you make. That scene that you mentioned is literally the very end of the movie. I made a note about that. How it ends so abruptly. You're on this ride, and as soon as he walks through that door, you never see him again. You go to the crowd who's super happy for him, which is nice. You know, you
The
think
guy
people would
eating dinner into the bathtub.
yeah, I love that. But I love all those characters. But then the guys in the parking lot say, "All right, what's next?" And the movie ends, because you know it is what's next. You know, but the ultimate, the you also made a good point, Pat, in that Arrival is, in comparison to Truman, one breath, one beat. Or Truman feels like there's so many different scenes and so many great scenes, so many comedy scenes, so many scenes that are like. Really on the edge of your seat. You don't know what's going to happen. Like I think my favorite scene, and I thought about, I wrote down like 20, but I think my favorite scene is when he's in the library and he asks the girl to go out, and she writes down "right now," and they end up going out on the beach, and the dad he says, "I don't know." She says, "I've never met this person. I've never seen this person." She says this about all of her boyfriends. She said this about all of them. That scene is so creepy, and like, and it makes you feel like, man, you know, this is not obviously, you know, what's going on. Yeah, you know what's going on, but like there's shit like that actually goes on, and it's so creepy and weird. And I love that scene, and I love all the scenes like that throughout this movie, The Truman Show. And I think in comparison to that, The Arrival, it doesn't have the scenes like that. The ending, when it comes together, is really and I'll save my thoughts for that when I get to the end. But like, Truman Show has 20 more better scenes than Arrival does.
I like what you said. It was a breath. Arrival's a breath, a great breath, a breath of fresh air. It really is. Doc?
I'm going to reiterate maybe what Beware was saying in terms of kind of there's so many classic, I don't want to say confrontations, but in Truman Show, where Truman is faced with his air quote wife or his best friend, and kind of they're when you kind of know that this isn't real, and you see their interaction, their dialogue, and the humor in it, but the seriousness in it, and that kind of it toes that line. And so many great scenes. But I do want to recognize in Arrival that there are some really good scenes too. The scene in Arrival, like really where it all comes together, as Beware said, like that to me, and I know that I've got some time travel or time enthusiasts on the discussing panel here, and like I'm a sucker for
Back to the Future couldn't make the list, unfortunately. It's the best sequel of all time.
But I'm a sucker for a movie that deals with time and bending time and what if and you know, thinking about things differently. I'm a sucker for those types of movies. And so when you see that scene where she is kind of face to face with is it Colonel Shang or Colonel Chang, and it plays out, it's so amazing. And you know, you start to realize too, and that was the first time for me where I started to realize, like, oh shit, like her seeing her daughter, those weren't flashbacks, those were flash forwards. Like for me, like I probably realized a little bit earlier, but like those earlier scenes, I didn't realize that. So like all of a sudden,
ends with the beginning's the end.
Yep.
Crazy.
So, like,
good point,
that,
Doc.
and so like that was that was the key piece that started to kind of turn things on me. And then you see those interactions with the Colonel where he's touted as this kind of badass. He's a badass. You don't fuck with him. And nobody changes his mind. And you see her face to face with him changing his mind and, whispering to him the words that his wife said to him on her deathbed, and him explaining that to her, and him explaining, this is how you change my mind, and him explaining those sorts of things. And I like, oh, what did I say, or what did I do? And so she really doesn't know, but through kind of manipulating time or thinking about things differently, sees the answers. And I love that whole aspect because it does flip the whole movie on its head. And so I love that scene. It's great because it kind of puts it all together. But to go back to Truman Show real quick, there's one scene that, I don't know, this is silly, but it stood out to me, but where Truman's trying to figure things out, and he tracks his wife, the nurse, to the hospital, and they're like, oh shit, he's actually here. We actually have to act and do stuff. And he goes,
surgery.
Yes, the surgery scene where he's observing the surgeon, and he's like,
it's a couple. I'm now making my primary incision just above the right.
oh, I've got to make my primary incision. Yeah, he's standing there. Savage is pulling his hands up because he's standing there like, I don't know what to do. And and I'm going to make my primary incision above the knee. And that's just, it's too funny, man.
And then the patient coughs, who's supposed to be sedated. So it's like...
Savage, what do you got to say about your favorite scene?
Yeah, I mean, so we talk about like science fiction movies and movies that have aliens in them, and it's one of those things, like you see a trailer for like a movie that is featuring like extraterrestrials, and generally you know what the alien looks like. And then in more recent years, you watch movies like Cloverfield or Arrival, or I'm trying to think of maybe like not Prometheus, but like other like kind of alien like movies where you don't actually know what the alien looks like. So for me, like my favorite scene is that first contact, that first introduction, when you meet Abbott and Costello.
It's quick too.
Yeah, it is really quick, and it cuts off pretty abruptly and kind of sets it up for the rest of the movie and subsequent scenes after, where they're interacting and trying to teach language. And I really thought it was just kind of the amount of tenseness that my body had during that, watching it and seeing, like what do the aliens look like? And like I remember seeing it from when I'd seen the movie before. What's that?
Hands and knuckles.
Yeah, and like it's it just straight up looks like a hand upside down.
Yeah, a good choice though, man, because it wasn't everything you focused on, it was just strange, and it was enough fine. Stuff that, love
right,
that.
and it wasn't like they weren't like we were talking last night a little bit about like small grays and reptilians and things of that nature, and it wasn't like that prototypical alien that you see with like the light ball shaped head and the big bug eyes.
Real quick, before so something to add to that scene, Savage, because I think that is great too, is even build up before they go to the aliens, where the whole tense of approaching the pod, of going up, that hearing that you hear their breath, the intensity in that, and it's all focused on that. So awesome. And then the whole switching gravity when they're up there, like that shit blew my mind, and I was like, oh shit, this is on another level.
Let me add one thing to that, what you just said. So they go up on the what would you call that? Like the movable scaffolding or whatever that
a lift.
A lift. Thank you. When they go up on the lift in that lifting motion, they get to the top, and then the kind of the anti-gravity, if you will, takes over and brings them up. If you're looking at their they have some like telemetry devices or some sort of like visual devices that happen to have like a gyro in it, like on your phone, when you turn it to portrait mode and like the camera changes, you look at the little device that they're holding, and they're spinning around because the gravity isn't like they're not actually getting a true gravity signal. so the phones don't know which way is up, or like the telemetry devices don't know which way is up. So you see that attention to detail when you're seeing their phone view, I guess, whatever, changing and kind of spinning around on their screen. I just thought kind of that attention to detail was pretty phenomenal.
Love that.
As far as Arrival goes, the part that I thought was most interesting about the movie, captivating visually, was the language itself. I feel like it was super cool looking, and when they started to explain, basically the movie kind of jumps into a montage of how they are starting to very simplistically communicate with each other. And once they start to, so basically my favorite scene from Arrival is that montage where they're sort of dissecting the language with technology, and they're showing him walking, and they're holding up these cue cards, and they're really making progress. So I just thought that was super cool. With the Truman Show, I think that the coolest part about that movie, scene-wise, is the fact that he reunites with his father, and then you got about, I'd say, the first third to the first half of the movie where it's sort of setting up Truman's life, and the audience is learning about Truman's world. And then after he meets his father, it sort of breaks the movie open to what it's like for the rest of the world watching him. So they start showing it, where they transition to start making the audience a character itself. So you're starting to see these regular viewers, and it's the two ladies holding the Truman pillow and the guy in the bathtub and all that. And then they're showing like the merchandise, and this is all while this guy that they have is like updating everybody on what's happening in the Truman Show while he's like just doing something boring like eating breakfast. That being said, it sort of sets up the end of the movie, and how it shows like how many people are caring for him. It gives you the weight of the end of the movie and how many people are watching. Because up until that point, you don't really feel, it's a TV show, but you don't feel that people are watching until they break that open. So I would say, like, aside from the end of the Truman Show, which I think is probably the best scene, I think the coolest transition of the movie itself is when they do open the movie up to the audience.
Yeah, and that was great. You and Beware were talking a lot about that, as that being like, a really cool part in the film. Like, you get to take that ride. Cap, were you about to ask the panel what their favorite piece of memorabilia would be? Because sure. I think this is a great, we don't have to pull this out every episode, folks, and I know immediately I got to go with the Truman Show, because everything's for sale. Unfortunately, you might not be able to find it on eBay. I bet Beware could. He's pretty good with eBay. But everything was for sale on the show, folks. And I thought about the dicer, the shredder, but no, I was like, I want a 6-pack of that beer, because it's good, pretty good. What does he say? It's a good.
That is a beer.
I'll put it in. Anytime Truman and his best bud, Merlin, or what? Marlin, sorry. Merlin.
Yeah, I like how he goes. He has to have the 6-pack to go wake him up in the middle of the night. Truman, nice cold 6-pack, buddy.
Yeah, you fucking crazy dude. But then of course he cuts Truman like aggressively in the corner with when he comes in and she's breaking down. Meryl is, but that's great too. All right, who's got a piece of memorabilia they want to take home? Cap, why don't we go to you, buddy?
I'll since the outfits are for sale in the Truman Show, I'm gonna take Truman's gardening outfit. If anybody remembers that, yeah,
that's great.
And I'll go ahead.
Cap,
yeah, sure.
You missed a spot.
Missed a spot. And just real quick to point out that Laura Linney is, I think, the definite supporting character.
Supporting captor, folks. Supporting
captor, sure. Yeah, she kind of, I was talking about this earlier, but I just feel like that she does this really well, in a lot of movies is just acts like a phony person, and she does that so well, and I just really appreciate it. So Doc, let's get your piece of memorabilia.
The doc is in to pick you up.
Well, I got a couple, and but it's between two things, one from each movie. So the first one is in the Truman Show, where Sylvia is wearing the pin that says, "How's it going to end?" I love that. And I love that not just because it's a Truman Show, but I love that as a general question. How's it going to end?
Yes.
And then the other thing that I actually think I'm going to go with, and this might be kind of breaking the rules a little bit, because it's not necessarily memorabilia, but in Arrival, the house that Dr. Lois Banks lives in is fucking awesome. And I just, like, on the lake, it's got the great windows. So I think I would, if it's a piece of memorabilia, I think I might take that house.
Dang, Doctor's got a piece of real estate. Yikes. Savage?
Yeah, I mean, I had a sailboat growing up, and I have some fond memories of sailing with my dad. I would probably have to say the sailboat.
The first one or the second one, Savage? I would imagine the second one.
The second one's a little bit bigger, a little bit more seaworthy. I would go for that one.
Nice choice. Hey, I'm getting a little jealous. All I got is a 6-pack. So beware.
It's the Santa Maria, by the way. Right?
Oh, facts with Cap.
Which that was the name of one of Christopher Columbus's boats.
Right.
Discover the New World.
The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria.
See, folks, who knows what's going to go to the next round, but we could have a lot more to talk about both these films, so we never know. But I got to hear what Beware's thing is. I only got a 6-pack, Beware. Hopefully you make a better choice than me.
So I want the spaceship.
Oh, he just trumped all you. I'm floored, folks. I don't even know how you're going to drive it, but if it just floats there in your backyard, you're killing it. Talk about a garden gnome. Hey, ladies and gentlemen.
It's just a glorified swimming pool that you go in, you go up the thing, and you just have to
it's a water tower. Let's be honest.
One thing I got to say, folks, is if there ever is spaceships outside doing what they did in Arrival, that movie is going to be very, very has a foretelling, if you will, because that's how it would go down, man. Communication, folks. Communication is what we're here for. And us thread members, we're trying to communicate with one of each other to figure out between our friendship and our thread, what is the greatest movie of all time, folks. And we've had a lot of great matchups, and this still is, I think I got to say, one of the hardest matchups. So I'm getting all my thread members pumped up and ready to get their cogs going in their head and get ready to think of what their vote is. Maybe some are still undecided. I am, folks, and I'm going to request to vote last tonight. But before we do that, I'm going to go to Doc, because Doc usually tends to have a little bit more things to say that if we would have missed it, folks, it'd be a damn shame, folks. So let's do it.
So I will say that, like, when you just said my name right there, I got a shock. I don't know if I have the answer yet. I don't know if I can vote on a movie yet, but I do have some additional facts I can share.
Facts.
So I don't know. So I always kind of give you guys the Academy Award, nominees and winners for both of these. Maybe that might be some data or some information that might factor into your decision. So starting with Truman Show, again, it was 1998. At the Academy Awards that year, they got 3 nominations, which is they got nominated for Best Director, Best Supporting Actor in Ed Harris, and Best Adapted Screenplay Adapted to Movie. They didn't take home any, but they won. They were nominated for 3.
How could Ed Harris get nominated for? I mean, that doesn't even seem.
He's probably
always weirded me out,
like,
man.
Not even 3 minutes.
That is like the most bullshit nomination. I'm
so
sorry.
You want to know why I think
me.
maybe? I want to know why I think maybe. So there was actually a big to-do because Dennis Hopper was actually originally cast to play that role, and he walked off after like a week or 2 of filming. Just literally walked off. They say it was differences, and Ed Harris started that, like, basically on a whim. The director reached out to him and said, "Hey, da-da-da," and he basically in a day or 2 popped on and did that role. So maybe that factored into it a little bit, kind of the last minute nature of it.
I'd have rather seen Dennis Hopper play that role.
I would 1,000 times.
Too.
Yes, I would
that
rather
might
Dennis
just be a
Hopper that.
sweep.
Yeah,
I do like Ed Harris though. I will say that.
Yeah, he's fine, but Dennis Hopper is a completely.
He's more than fine.
Dennis Hopper with being directed by Terry Gilliam in a Black Mirror movie would be the prime way to see that movie.
Are we gonna?
So, because I feel like now that since we're still on the topic of kind of like who could have been casted for what, Robin Williams was potentially in the conversation to play Truman. What would you guys think about that as a replacement for Jim Carrey?
Well, we know he could have done it. We do know that.
Yeah, he
but
could
Jim
have done
Carrey
it.
is perfect. I
Jim
say
Carrey's
no
the guy.
replacement.
Jim Carrey's
no
the man.
replacement.
All right, so Academy Award noms for Arrival. So they got 8 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay. They only took away 1 win though, which was for sound editing, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, rightfully so. But
that was a really competitive year.
What won?
2016.
Best Picture.
Best Picture was Moonlight, understandably.
Yeah. Okay, that didn't make the list, folks. Somebody could have it on a mulligan. You know,
that was the year that when they announced it. That was
the La La Land one.
Yeah,
right?
they announced. Then they fucked it up. They said La La Land won,
shit.
and then it went to Moonlight. That was a big fucking deal. I don't think that's ever happened.
No.
Set up, folks. Hey, that's a Truman Show right there, and actually happening right there, folks.
Who were the announcers? Was it
Jimmy Kimmel? What's that?
No, it wasn't Jimmy Kimmel, was it?
No, it's Dick Tracy. What's his name?
Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty.
Beatty, yeah.
It wasn't Jimmy Kimmel?
It was Jimmy Kimmel too.
Well, was Jimmy Kimmel the host, and then he came out, and Warren Beatty was. I think it might have been what it was. Okay. Remember Jimmy Kimmel came out and was just like, oh. Shit.
I remember people had their hands over their faces. They were showing the audience. Oh my god.
Controversy.
Yeah.
I think our thread members right here are just delaying the inevitable. Is that they have to vote on 2 great movies.
I really am.
I know.
And that's more facts.
But I'm gonna go to who seemed I've been hanging out with all weekend. My good friend Savage, who I love so much, and I've been hanging out with him all weekend.
Hard.
And I think if I had to guess, saying I know my fellas out there pretty well, I think I know what he's going to say. But it truly has been a tough matchup. So we're going to go to Savage for the first.
Yeah. You probably know. I'm the one who voted down the other 2 mulligans to replace Arrival. I hold Arrival very near and dear to my heart. I don't have that same relationship with the Truman Show. Truman Show is a great movie. I kind of maybe would debate some of its belongingness to this specific top 64 films. That's debatable, which is fine. That's what we're here to do.
Is it?
But Arrival, yeah. But I think Arrival, as far as like that kind of movie, I think it checks every box for me. I think Arrival's the one for me. So
we have a vote, folks, and we're going to go to the Cap. Cap, talk about your vote.
Yeah, I'll have to say that watching Arrival again didn't quite have the same effect on me as it did the first time, maybe because of the element of surprise. I was pretty blown away by the movie the first time I saw it. I do really, really, really enjoy the movie. However, Truman Show I do hold very near and dear to my heart. It's one of those movies that I think I saw when I was a freshman or a sophomore, and was pleasantly surprised to see Jim Carrey do a more serious role. That being said, I think I enjoy this movie more because, you have this character that has this huge transition, but they do have this really sort of low-key love story going on between the character played by Natasha McCloughan, if you can edit that. I'm not sure.
Please welcome Natasha McCloughan.
That's how you pronounce her last name. You don't see them interact a whole lot, but you do feel his longingness for her, and you don't even get to see them meet, but you know that, she's rushing out the door as soon as he leaves the set of the Truman Show. And I gotta be honest, that got me good today when I was watching it.
Shed a tear. Cap sheds tear. We have to tell the folks when you shed tear out there, Cap.
Yeah, shed a tear today, and it's a beautiful thing. It's pretty rare. So yeah, I'll go with Truman Show all the way.
Wow. So we have 1-1, folks. I think we're gonna go to Beware. Beware, who's just seen Arrival for the first time, who's seen Truman Show, quote unquote, 50 times. I don't doubt that at all. What do you got to say, Beware?
I watched Arrival. I finished watching Arrival 10 minutes before I hopped on here. Not even.
We had a feeling. Beware's always late with his homework, but right on time, if you will.
I was watching it right on time, and when I turned the camera on, I said, how crazy do I look? Do I look crazy? Because I was sobbing. I was sobbing at the end of that movie. It got me really good, actually. And up until the end of the movie, about when the first time you realize what's happening. There's two moments where you they're basically saying here's what's happening, and then they confirm it. I realized that the first time when that hit me, it hit me like a brick wall. And it's to your point, it's to who I think Doc made the point earlier, just talking about how you really make decisions in life by taking a leap of faith. And when you realize what's going on, she's seeing the future, she knows what's going to happen, she knows what she's going to do, she knows the type of relationship she's going to have despite the inevitable unfortunate consequences. It's like that's rough. That's really rough, but it's also super powerful, and for me, I've gone through some things where it was like, man, we took some leaps of faith, and my wife and I, after being together forever and not wanting to do it, and then it was really difficult when it happened, and you never know it's still going to happen, and when you see a reminder like that, it's like, man, it's just kind of put in perspective. It was heavy, very heavy. All that being said, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was great. But when I'm looking back after all the categories, and I was kind of undecided, but ultimately not too undecided after watching both films, Truman Show has, like I mentioned, 15 notable scenes to the point where I look back at them over 15 years and they all will stand out, where I can't say that about Arrival. Each of the characters in Truman Show really stand out, the main characters. And that's not something that I would say about Arrival. This story is so unique in Truman Show. It's one of a kind. Where Arrival's really well done and it's really impactful, Truman Show is so different and one of a kind and ahead of its time, and everything about that movie is so good. And ultimately, it's why it gets my vote. I vote for Truman Show over Arrival.
Wow, we have a vote from Beware, folks. And I'll tell you what, though, when he's talking about Arrival, I was psyched out, folks. I told you I'm undecided, and he's talking about it. I'm like, man, these are my friends. Sometimes you do. It's like not you look up to people, but you also you're here to make your own decision. But isn't greatness the ideas of many? Truly, they come from one person, but that's philosophy. We have to study and understand the shit, and together we can decide what is greater. And I'm just making a small point to a big point of what friendship is. All my Thread members I love so much, and thank you for tuning in. Hey, Doc.
Yeah, man. Oh, God, I love hearing everybody's points about this one. This is a close matchup. If you go to IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb has Truman Show at 8.1, Arrival at 7.9. Rotten Tomatoes, Truman Show's at 95%, Arrival's at 94%. So
we do have a close matchup by the world. All the viewers out there, this is close.
These are great movies, and to get anything above a 7.5 on IMDb is awesome, and to give anything above 90, 80% on Rotten Tomatoes is admirable. So both these movies fall in that category.
Shout out to IMDb because we still use their voting scale for everything. You have a burger, 7.8 burger. That's a pretty fucking good burger. Shout out to IMDb. We're IMDb babies, not Rotten Tomato, but I respect both.
Yeah, and both are good.
I love them so much.
But and hearing Beware's take on Arrival, it does pull those strings, man, and like that is the take home. That is, the leap of faiths that you take, and if you could see what the future held, how much would that impact the steps you take if you also knew, not just necessarily the hurt that you might feel or the sense of loss that you might feel, but also the sense of joy and what are the other options that, if you were to go this other route, what would those, end results be? And I think it's a really great question, and one that helps you maybe feel more comfortable and confident in kind of following your decisions in the moment. And it's a great movie. And then the fact, like, I love the science aspect in Arrival. I love, they even make a statement of this, Jeremy Renner's character, which we haven't even talked about him. I mean, understandably, but, he says,
fuck him.
Cap loves him.
But he says a quote that says, "Science is the glue of civilization," and I couldn't agree more. And I love that, and I feel like that's something that we as a culture and society really need to remind ourselves and remember.
The facts, Doc. Right? Stick to the facts, folks.
Yeah.
I take that back.
Cap cries
Cap
twice
cries
tonight,
wolf.
folks. Once he does it once, he's bound to do it again.
Real quick, if I can get one last fact in before I make my final decision, is with Arrival, their daughter's name is Hannah, which is a palindrome, and I think they say that within the movie. And so a palindrome is that her name's spelled the same way forward as it is backward. Oh shit!
Stop.
Why didn't they just name him, like, if it would have been a boy, they would have named him Otto, right?
Savage.
Yeah, I mean, sure. And I'm trying to think of another palindrome, male name palindrome off the top of my head.
Poop.
Well, we all know that
Let it go.
It symbolizes the time aspect, and it's like, the same thing forward and backward. But did you guys also know that one of the actors' last names is also a palindrome in Arrival?
Wait, what? Like, actually?
Yeah.
Renner.
Oh,
Renner.
No
is
shit.
Wow.
Good
Damn,
one.
Doc.
Right.
I'm going to save the facts with Doc till right there.
Facts with
that's a big
Doc.
one. Hey, run that back twice.
Facts with
if you want.
Doc.
That's a double facts with Docs. I like that, man. That's why we got you. But Doc, don't give me them R.L. Steins. Tell me about your vote.
So that said, best character, Jim Carrey, Truman Burbank. Best philosophical questions, in my opinion, are the ones that were posed by Truman Show. Is there such thing as free will? Can you alter fate? And no, like love, desire, those kind of rule the day. And I think that what I loved most about this and what really pushed my vote for Truman Show over the edge over Arrival, although Arrival deals with science and deals with, as I mentioned, time, which that's one of my favorite concepts. What Truman Show dealt with is skepticism and questioning what's around him and questioning his reality and being willing to kind of take that leap of faith of oh shit, all that I've grown up knowing is not the same, and I'm gonna be brave and question that and realize what is real. And I feel like that's also something that we as a society truly need, and not only need right now, but also need to make sure future generations are healthy skeptics of all the information and things that they're gathering. And so that to me is a theme that I think is very palpable and very relevant in today's day and age, and is a reason why, in addition to Jim Carrey, why I love this movie, and I'm going to vote for Truman Show. All it is.
Doc. You're the Doc. I just made my decision while the Doc was talking. So if the folks out there want to take a guess at what it is, but what Doc just actually gave me the idea for, which is going to allow me to make my vote, is that the Truman Show is preparation for what we need when Arrival happens, folks, because Arrival could happen. I'm telling you, if anything, hey, how many stars out there, Doc? You don't got to tell them. We're among billions and billions of other possible life forms and stuff like that. So this chance that some ships shaped like a shape that we're familiar with show up one day, folks, you go do a little bit of research, you'll be thinking that thing's going to happen tomorrow. But we need more communication. We need more unity. We need, when they have the China's about to, whatever it is, about to come in, and they're saying, fuck it, we're going in for the nukes, we're going in for the attack, and every country falls out one after another, because that's how it is, folks. United Nations, all that, whatever, it's peace, and it's science, and it's understanding, and we don't have a secret language yet to predict the future, folks, unless something I don't know. But what I do know is my vote is for Arrival, because Truman Show made me able to understand that, hey, this is a bigger step. The TV programming, that's the 101 wokeness. You're Truman, you got woke. You become woke, folks. Truman got woke, and I'm woke out there. But hey, we need to think about bigger stuff, harder stuff, and that's Arrival. That's science and creativity coming together across the board, and stop being ridiculed and all that. And that's what Doc told me. This is a precedent, if you will. It's something we have to really focus on. But hey, unfortunately, folks, Arrival is not going to make it to the next round, and that's fine. I don't say unfortunately, because the Truman Show had
Bullshit.
my vote 80% of the time. It could have went any way, man. It really could. Beware almost made me think he was going to vote for Arrival. Folks, if you're out there, you got the R.L. Steins, and you're like, man, gosh, I just wish Arrival would have been. It's such a great movie. Well, you're not wrong, but we do have our thread here. You're obviously out there listening. You're a part of it too. Maybe one day we'll get you on the panel out here so you can have a say in it. But right now, it's just our friends that I love so much out here deciding what the greatest is. And this has a lot to do with our friendship. And the Truman Show goes forward. And that's what I would have predicted when I pulled that movie out of a hat last week. And folks, I got a hat in my hand. I got a hat in my hand. One day we're going to write a really cool quirky song for the hat song, and Beware's gonna cook it up. I need it to be strange and weird, but we're going to the hat, folks, and I sing a little tune before I go to it, and I get those goosebumps, those R.L. Steins. It's the 80s baby in me, and I'm about to pick out a movie. I got tons in my fingers now. I believe I have one little minuscule sheet of paper that has 2 movies on it, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I am about to expose homework, next week's battle bracket. Yes, upside down, folks. I can't see it. It's upside down. I have to flip it over. Let's see if it's right, left or right. Folks, it's not right. I have to then turn it over and to the left and straighten it up. And now, folks, honestly, folks, the goosebumps are there. The R.L. Steins are there. They're sticking up straight. I swear to you, folks, I am not lying. This is going to be one of the best breakdowns, only because I think one of our thread members loves one of these movies so much, and I don't care. We're about to see 2 great movies. I'm going to say it first. The Social Network.
Oh, shit.
The Social Network. The Social Network.
No.
Savage's favorite movie of all time. Folks, it ages well. It's fantastic. For the folks out there, they don't know what that movie's up against because we haven't gave them the bracket yet. It's up against 3 billboards. And Cap, say the full title. Say the full title for the folks up there.
3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri.
Yep.
Wasn't I supposed to say it?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
You guys work together. Forget you're on the tennis team, Hey, kiss and make up, please. Kiss and make up.
This is hard.
Has anybody not seen this movie? I have a suspicion that maybe Beware hasn't. Is that a fact?
I haven't seen Billboard.
Wow. See, this is my favorite part of the podcast, folks, is that my top gutty, my fella Beware, he hasn't seen some of these movies because he's such a busy guy. He's out here producing music 24 hours a day, basically. This is exciting when you can show one of your friends a great movie, and that's 2 in a row for Beware. But this is the time of the night, folks, where I say, speak now or forever hold your peace, because
I'm doing it.
Oh my God. So say it.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this a little bit more interesting. And here's what I'm going to do.
I haven't heard the magic word, so it doesn't count.
So I want to call a mulligan.
Mulligan!
And here's my reasoning. I love Social Network more than 99 point something % of movies that were ever made. That's probably my top 3 movies maybe of all time, which is kind of a strange thing anyway. I want to make this a little bit more challenging, and I want to put it up against something where you can do apples to apples. So I want to take out 3 Billboards and I want to put in Gone Girl. I want to have a movie that has had the same writer and director for both movies going up against each other for this movie.
All I got to say is that I was so excited for Beware to watch a movie that he hasn't seen, but now Savage has proposed a mulligan for a great movie. Beware, we're going to go to you for your vote. If you want to see something you've seen, and I know you know is good, we've debated putting on the list, or do you want to watch a movie you've never seen that we all want you to see?
Oh, it's not up to me. It's up to the consensus. I personally vote yes, because A, I have not seen Billboards. B, I've heard that it's super sad, and I don't need that. C, David Fincher makes my favorite movies, so I'm down to watch David Fincher, two David Fincher movies. Let's do it.
Beware's vote is yes for the mulligan. Now we're going to go to the Doc. Doc, what is your vote for Will's Savage's mulligan? I'm frazzled, folks. Forgive me.
Oh, man. So first of all, I love that Savage in the bracket that has arguably his favorite movie. He also he calls a mulligan on the other movie, not to like what I did where I just kind of try to throw in a movie so that Royal Tenenbaums would get through. He tries to pull up a challenger, and I think that is really admirable, and I appreciate that. And it is surprising that Gone Girl is not actually part of our bracket, because that's an excellent movie. However, looking at, if I'm kind of had to remind myself real quickly about Gone Girl, and I pulled up the IMDb and also pulled up 3 Billboards, and I'm not going to compare the scores. They're pretty identical. But what I am going to compare, and what I'm more excited to watch 3 Billboards than I am to watch Gone Girl again. And I'll say because I actually think Gone Girl, the story is sadder than 3 Billboards, I'll say, if I remember correctly. And the performances in 3 Billboards from Frances McDormand, from Sam Rockwell,
Sam
Woody
Rockwell's
Harrelson are amazing. And that movie belongs in this thread. And so I respect what Savage is doing, and I do think Gone Girl does belong in this bracket, possibly, but I don't think it's good enough to replace 3 Billboards. And although Beware, I know you're busy, man. I know you got things going on. I know homework's tough, but I want you to see this movie.
Hey, Beware always watches it each week, though, even if he's seen it 50 times, like the Truman Show. I'm going last, folks. Cap.
I can't let it happen. I can't.
The Cap likes 3 Billboards.
I love 3 Billboards. It's one of my.
It's my vote too.
Great.
It's my vote too. Savage gets his mulligan back, folks.
And we do have a lot of Fincher movies on the list. I do appreciate this is one of the ones that I could have Adam kind of changed my mind. If Adam would have voted for it, I think I would have too, just to see a mulligan go through. I would have maybe just kind of gone with it, but
hey Cap,
shit, he's one of my favorites.
Hey Cap,
3 Billboards, sure.
Mulligan.
Oh, shit.
Now, folks, I don't mean to hold you up. Folks, I don't try to hold you up there, but I have this mulligan in my head, and I think it is one of the greatest films of all time. And I'm going to say it right now, one of my top 10. So I'd like to see it in the final 4, and it's not even on our list, folks. So if Social Network is this great, fantastic movie like Savage says it is, which it is, folks, but is there greater? Is there greater, folks? Yep. I got one that's greater for you, folks. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Savage hasn't seen it, you son of a bitch. That's what I call for my mulligan, folks. And I'll be damned if it doesn't fucking replace 3
To replace what?
It is 3 Billboards, ladies and gentlemen. I wouldn't dare replace Social Network, Savage, or that would
be just
I
too
miss
mean
you.
to Savage.
We just hung out for a whole weekend.
Yeah,
I couldn't do that to you. Jeez. No, get 3 Billboards out of here. It's a fantastic movie. Let's replace it with a greater movie.
I'll
Here
vote.
we go. All right, we're in with the cat, folks. He's got to vote on one of these classic films that didn't make the list.
Wow, Three Billboards is one of my favorite, more recent movies. I just love Sam Rockwell in that movie so much. But One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I think is one of the best movies ever made.
Yes.
I'm gonna say yes.
Yes, yes, yes. We have a yes. Doc is in. The doc.
So
is
real
in.
quick, I'm looking at the bracket because I can't believe that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is not on it. Is that
Not
for
on it
real?
because Savage had not seen the movie, but we decided
It's
later
not on
that
there.
a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of
not
us
on there
hadn't
for
seen
sure.
some certain movies.
Wow.
So that was just one that kind of slithered off, and I want it back on, Doc.
Wow.
It's a classic. It's one of the best movies ever made.
Three Billboards could always be mulliganed back in. Let's keep that in mind.
That's
Yeah,
facts
true.
with Cap.
I hate that I'm about to, I don't want to say contradict myself, but for as much as I just built up Three Billboards, and as much as I do love that movie, and as much as I want Beware to watch that movie, I have to go One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest because that
Yes,
is awesome.
yes.
And I cannot believe that it's not on our list.
Yes. I love
And I can't believe that Savage hasn't seen it because Savage, you're gonna love it, man.
Is that 80%, Doc, yet? I'm too frazzled.
No,
That's 3. We need one more.
So I've never seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I've seen Three Billboards. I love Three Billboards. I think it's a great movie. But yeah, let's
Savage, because it couldn't be Social Network. We already know the answer. It's Social Network. So now you have a chance to actually have an upset. And I present you.
Yeah, but I'm not the whole thread though. And like that's one of my movies that I hold dear. But here's what I'm gonna say. I like to watch movies I've never seen before. If Godfather 2, which I've never seen, so it kind of delegitimizes myself with a movie bracket podcast. But if that were on this list, I would vote for that as well. But due to some of the rules and stipulations, we can't. So I would say that.
Let's just see if it sweeps.
I want to try. Yeah, let's do it. I want to do it. Let's pass it through. I'm down.
I love it. Beware. Even though we got 80%, I love to hear from my folks out there, my fellows. Beware is in realms unknown. It's dark where I'm seeing. Oh, I thought you entered the arrival ship there, Beware. He's back with us. What's your vote on this mulligan?
The suspense is killing me.
Yeah, he's actually talking in symbols, folks. He's just made an ink drawing and he's just threw it out here. I have to go with Doc and Savage got to work together on the mathematics and science to see if we can figure out what Beware.
He bought a couple billboards on Woodward Avenue that is going to display his.
The next episode, the suspense is building. Beware.
Beware.
Hey, Beware is chosen. No, Beware. We can't hear you. I don't know why. It does sound like Arrival, and it's just low. You got to turn up your frequencies. Insert. Sorry. Honestly, Beware has checked out, folks. We can't hear you. We do have 80% though. 80%.
Throw it in the chat. Throw it in the chat. Beware.
No.
Talk about.
We got, see, Arrival didn't win, and all of a sudden, all communication has been lost, folks.
Sure, it's fine.
Okay.
Mulligan approved. All right. Cuckoo's Nest.
It's fine.
Hey, I gotta be honest. I'm excited about the artwork next week.
Oh man, it's a really good film, and I bet Cap's gonna shed a tear. The doc is Beware. I guarantee you shed a tear for One Flew Over, but it's not a dark movie. It's great, and it still ages so well, folks. I'm so excited. Hey, folks, my mulligan has just went through. All it is here.
First mulligan.
I don't have a mulligan
First real
anymore.
mulligan.
Yeah,
I can't.
Great.
I'm out of it. I'm out of the discussion. I had some movies I wanted to maybe replace with greater, but I've done it, folks.
Can you still vote?
I'm scared that my favorite movie's not going to go through. Like, I'm scared that
Wow, I love that. That's great.
Yeah,
this
so
is a great.
I like this.
I love it that Will hasn't seen the movie that potentially could. That he might change his mind. Yeah.
Right.
2 weeks in a row, folks. This has
Down.
been the hardest matchups we ever had on our thread.
It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
really
down.
going to be a good one. If you haven't done your homework, folks, please do it with us this week because I really want to just be there right with you, having these R.L. Steins like I got. But signing off from our thread, I'm All It Is here with Doc, Savage, Cap, and Beware. And we're coming back to you next week with episode 7, Mulligan. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for Savage's all-time favorite movie, who is in our intro quote. To let you know, his quote in the intro music is each one of us separately has some movie
6'5", 220, and there's two.
So I can't wait to hear that. So why don't we play that right now?
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Well, it's very, homey.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here.
I hope you realize how you hurt my feelings.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. Next place.
Just take it easy, man.
I'm perfectly confident.
Yeah, waving the fucking gun around?
Calmer than you are.
Look, I made a mistake, all right? It didn't make any difference anyway.
Hey, I'm letting it go. But don't say it doesn't matter. Every line matters.
Get off my back!
Don't fuck with my plan!
And like that, he's gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread Podcast, bringing our content to you, featuring All It Is.
It's official, old buddy. It has been.
Beware.
From then on, he was known as Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The Doc.
You're the doc, Doc.
The Cap.
If you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Big fuck.
And myself, Savage.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's two of them.